My name is Saira. I'm a British-born South Asian riding the waves between East and West worlds. My work as an artist allowed me the joys and pain of examining my own identity as a woman within a dichotomy of cultures. My latest NFT series, Blockchain Boobies, unintentionally caused me to turn the mirror, revealing others in the diaspora, others like me. And when I felt a strange calling to reach out, these women came in droves, welcoming the space I held for them. In this Web3 world, barely occupied by women, and less so by women of colour, I find myself on a path of duty. I will fill the blockchain with 1001 women, and in doing so, I will continue to seek out these women in real life and give them a platform to share their courageous stories.
The reason I connected with Saira and what she was doing is that in my writing, so I'm also a writer and a screenwriter, currently writing a play. What I've been exploring a lot is the concept of holding space. You know, we talk about it in therapy and like holding space and taking up space and creating space. And ultimately, as women, we hold space within ourselves. We have wounds. My first home was my mother's womb, the first space that was ever held for me in this world. A space that grew and grew around me and created more space to hold me. That was my mum. So I look a lot about women's narratives and retelling stories, and ultimately with the artwork that you've created, you are holding a lot of space, 1,001 pieces of digital and real space. So that was what drew me most to collaborating with you tonight.
I had the opportunity to go to my dream art university and study fine art, but I chose not to do it because I wanted to run away, and because my parents were so strict and they wanted me to conform to that culture, but I just couldn't do it. And when I went to Australia, I studied and met my husband, and I wanted to stay there. But then I really realised living in another society, particularly predominantly white society, and Australia has got its issues with racism, with the Aboriginal, quite a few, yes. A lot of issues with the Indigenous history there, and I really began to understand the issues of racism and come into my own and found myself as an independent woman as well. And I came back here almost over 5 years ago now, transformed. I feel like that was very, very important for me to develop my own identity. It's tough. It's really, really tough to reconcile your identity as a Pakistani woman and as a British woman, because I do still identify as both.
My podcast is called Too British to Be Asian. Something I have felt very much a lot of my life, and something I've been told actually as well, that I'm too British to be Asian. I should be in EastEnders or an episode of Animals and Horses rather than anything else. So yeah, it's something that we connected over so, wasn't it? Being brought up into cultures, something first gens out there would really, really resonate with, because it's very hard to go to school and be born and brought up here. Sometimes you feel like you walk out the door and you become British, in inverted commas. You walk back into your house, you're embracing your Indian heritage. And it was something that I found very difficult growing up. And it's something that actually, became a real identity crisis. And I really didn't know how to manage that. And I really had nobody to sort of speak to, because there was no one like me. I mean, I'd go home and people would take the mick out of my accent because it's so Cockney. And especially with my name Sharon, people didn't believe me I was Indian until they saw me, obviously. Or an EastEnders character. And by the way, I'd love to be in EastEnders, so if anyone knows the casting director of EastEnders, I would happily. So this is something that very personal to me when we talked about identity. And that's when my podcast came up, and that's how we started talking, because I think identity is still something. One is very subjective. Identity is something about how you feel. No one can tell you about who you are. You have to be telling people, you have to be using your voice to tell people who you are.
I am a real diaspora kid, so I was I was born in Germany. I was adopted by white parents, and I actually, when you said you walked out of the door and you're British and you come back and you're Indian, I was thinking about this and I was like, I think I never knew who I was because I had white parents who tried the utmost to make me as white as possible. Not because they were racist, just because they thought this is the way I can do the best in my life when I'm older. So I was really conditioned to act really white. And then my parents passed away quite early on in my life, so I've been on my own suddenly as a young adolescent. And was kind of identityless for over a decade. Looking for something to be. I heard your idea about the panel. I was like, oh yeah, this is what I would love to connect to other women, especially. I have my friends that I talk to about these things, but I haven't really often the chance to talk to women diaspora kids that I don't know. And I thought the challenge I'll take it and it's wonderful.
Growing up, I was bought whitening products. This is crazy, but I used to bleach my skin, and not just bleach my skin, I had a lot of hair before, and on dark skin, bleaching your hair goes ginger, like a blondie ginger. So I remember, and I thought I was beautiful. I thought I was absolutely stunning.
Fair and Lovely, do you remember that one?
Fair and Lovely, I do. Well, Jolene I had.
Bleach cream.
Yeah, Jolene. And I thought I looked absolutely amazing, and I thought I was like, loads of people are going to love me and want to marry me. I think I've been hiding a lot. I cut my hair recently. I'm 39, and it took me 39 years to cut my hair because what I understand what beautiful was, and to be accepted in my culture, was to have long hair, because long hair meant very beautiful. By stopping hiding, I then understood who I was. I understood by doing the things that I understood who I was.
I mean, there is that kind of whole coming out thing, right? That it's a little, you have that fear factor. When I tried to escape from it all, I thought I can't do this on my own, you know. And the first charity I went to said, you know, we can help you on the phone, we can help you emotionally, but you know, we can't really do anything physically because we'll get a petrol pump from the door. And a second charity I contacted, I thought, okay, again, these are religious charities, by the way, so you know, I think you're in safe hands. And I got on with this girl and I thought, she's amazing. She was like, look, I can do everything for you. I can talk to you. I've got these religious men. They can talk to your dad. They can explain that, you know, arranged marriages, you know, this country are the way forward, and do all of this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, she's amazing. And basically what happened was they arrested my dad. After that, it really messed things up even more. So I kind of found, it's a bit like we were saying before, Olivia, like it's quite hard to find your place when you try to and you don't really get that support and help you need. So sure, you can talk to your friends, but really, how do you make that transition? For me, it was end up just, you know, severing ties and running away, because I thought, I don't know how to do it. So I ran, which I think, you know, a few of us did. But that transition is tough, right?
My 16-year-old cousin's daughter, when she started to show signs of rebellion and wanting to integrate with British culture and identified more with British culture and having friends that were boys, that's when things started to go south. It got to the point where my 16-year-old cousin's daughter actually self-harmed, and my cousin did understand, and she did try to listen to me when I tried to explain to her the reason why she was unhappy, because she trusted me, and it didn't really get through until the second time when my cousin actually smashed her phone because she saw pictures of her with her friends that were boys, that just happened to be boys. Now, that actually caused a huge rift in the family, because it got to a stage where social services, where child protection services got involved, and my husband and I made the decision to take in my 16-year-old cousin's daughter. And she lived with us for a good couple of years until she went off to university, and that was a huge choice for us. It, like I said, caused a massive rift in the family, but I felt like that was the right thing to do, because I knew where she was coming from. I had been there, and I knew that. So we did take her in, and that basically caused my entire family to cut me off. So for doing what would seemingly be seen as the right thing to do, we didn't want her to go into foster care. We didn't want her to go through that process and be unhappy and potentially be at risk. So we did take her in, and my cousin still blames me for it, for being a bad influence, because I have a white husband. And it was very challenging, and it was very, very difficult for us to be seen as the bad influences in the family. But I knew that by not taking her in, it would open her up to way more risk, and I couldn't do it.
What things have you women kind of grabbed hold of and have made you feel that a little bit more empowered?
For me, I had a pretty significant life leveling event in 2019 where I lost my job, a job that I thought was the most important thing, because that's what you're told, that your career, and you go to university and you're supposed to go and work in the best place, and I was working in advertising, and I thought I was the big shot, and they didn't, and they made me redundant, and I just thought, who am I now? Like, if I don't have this title, this thing that defines me as a person, as this, contributor to society, if I haven't got an economic GDP contribution attributed to me, who am I? And I think when you have like something that levels your confidence in that way, and you have to come back from it, and there were a lot of other things that I'm not going to go on into in this conversation, but it felt like 2019 came at me with the trained and ruthless precision of a UFC fighter, and I was like ducking, and eyeball gouging was apparently allowed that year. And then when you come back from something like that, not because you outsmarted it, and not because you threw money at it, or not because you studied really hard, when you realise that it sounds so cliche, but when you realise you have that strength and you can come back and you can conquer your abyss, that was quite empowering for me. So anything that happens, any heartbreak, or a commission doesn't come to me, or I fail my driving test again, I'm like, you know what, you've got this. You've done things that are harder. You have faced your insides and said, I'm going to come back, and again, we go again, we fucking go again.
It's cool as an artist if you are so individual and there's nobody else like you. That actually sells really well, so I understood that as well. So I was like, actually, all the things that gave me so much pain when I was young, they now give me status, comfort, and sometimes money, and it's actually pretty cool to be so weird.
I'm finding myself getting closer to my version of culture. I'm definitely Muslim, I'm not practicing, but I do identify as Muslim quite solidly, but my version. I got contacted by one girl. It was like, and she said, you're so lucky that you've come through this now, by the way, because I'm in it, and I'm still trying to leave home, and I don't know how to do it, and I think I'm going to end up back in Pakistan, married off, and look, can I take your number, because if anything happens to me, can I call you? For me personally, I want to do more, right? Because this girl, she never contacted me again, and her Instagram group went offline. I don't know who she is, and I'd love to reach out to her and see if she's okay, but in most cases, we stay anonymous.
I started performing my story the first time when I went, I was invited to TEDx, and I gave a TEDx talk, and the talk is 5 years old now, and I still have people contacting me or sending me a little note or a comment saying, thanks for sharing your story, it really inspired me. Or thanks for sharing your story. Actually, my story is quite similar, and I feel less alone. And with the solo show, I think it's even more now, because it's an ongoing process. And I think what we really can do, what costs us almost nothing, because putting art out there, putting music out there, creating art like you do, it costs money as well. But I think talking about it, we came here today to the panel because we felt connected and we wanted to share our story. There might just be one person here who just needed to hear something like this today, and goes home and feels a little bit better, or thinks about something that starts the process. And I think it's really important that we, as we're becoming proper adults, I always say, everybody over 40 needs to get their shit together. like, our responsibility is to share this and to make sure that people who might not have access to this information get to hear it. And also, before I stop and finish, I want to say, when I saw your Instagram, I scrolled through the pictures and there was this lady, I think it's an NFT, very brown, long hair, and all the colors brown, and there she was. And I just saw myself in it. And I know we have a completely different heritage, we've never met, and that picture was the reason why I turned up today, because I looked at it and I was like, I saw myself, and I don't see myself very often, but I saw myself in this, and I think, for you putting up these pictures there are women like us, there might be women who don't look like us, they still see themselves represented in that, and I think that's the most important thing.
I'm just going to wrap up and say thank you so much, ladies. It was really insightful. Thank you for sharing your stories with me.
You may recognise me from the panel show where I was standing or sitting just over there. I'm about to perform a piece that I've been working on, which is part of a play that I'm writing. So this is a work in progress, and I will be keenly listening to your feedback and how you react to this, because it is part of a play that I'm writing. For a minute, forget what you know about Medusa. She was not the woman with snakes necessarily. She was a survivor of sexual assault. She was victim blamed. She was a woman before legend made her a monster. And I want to dedicate this to every woman, from Medusa to Monica Lewinsky, and to my mother and me. The stage note on this is, although Medusa is speaking out to you, on the stage right now, Perseus, the man that we have come to know destroy her, is standing behind her. So that's the moment that we're in right now. You came uninvited. My reputation precedes me. Again, it will eternally. Believe it, believe me, it's true. But you need to see for yourself. Believe yourself to be the exception to the rule. I warned them, I'll warn you too. I scare men, terrify them. Not for the famed reasons assumed, obvious, pedestrian, superficial. It's because I see them and they turn to stone in front of my eyes. I see their weakness, their vulnerability, right into the cores of their being, to the depths of the deception they deceive themselves with, into the parts of their souls that repulse them, and they freeze, pathetic, paralyzed, petrified. They think it's because of me, that this is my power. It's being confronted by their own fallibility and fragility that immobilizes them. Frailty, thy name is man, male ego. This is my power, my curse, I relish it. This hair, this tongue, these eyes, all the better to shit you up with, my dear. They call this exile. I call it an island of one's own, free from the trappings of servitude and lashings of domesticity that imprisoned me, violations that strangled, still choke. I created and hold this space for myself. No man is an island, but this woman is. I am entire of myself, not involved in mankind. This insults you, provokes you, challenges you. I want to be left alone. I came here to be alone, alone and not lonely, away from their lies, their cruelty, their subjugation. If they don't want to be seen, why do they pursue me? Why do you?
to take one look but not to have it returned. Male gaze expected to be met with lowered female gaze. I'd make eye contact even if we fucked. In the dark, in the light. I lower my eyes to nothing. Man, I'm giving you a chance, undeserved, to reconsider why you are here. Take a good look before I look. You seem confident, more confident than the others. Is this your hubris or mine? I have the vision that protects me. Fool me. Walk away. I ask you to leave me be. I'll turn around, and that will be the end of you. I'll match your gaze, eyes wide open, windows soul to soul, leering in, my head held high. I wonder, how will you endure being seen? I can tolerate it because I know what I am. In moments, I shall see you right back. So are you, man, enough to know your limitations? To accept me, to submit to me? To look away, walk away. Otherwise I will see you turn to stone. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think I'm going to hand the microphone over to Amani Saeed, who I am very lucky to be on a mural with outside the Rich Mix, and it is a great honour to actually be performing on the same stage as her, so this is a fangirl moment for me. Amani?
Jaskaran's really kind and like, do you know what? I was in such a fighting mood today and then my period hit. And like normally I'm funny, I'm witty, I'm whatever, and right now I'm bleeding. So just like, can you please bear with me? And also for like the men who are literally turning to stone in the back because I'm talking about my period. We're surrounded by blockchain boobies and it's the 21st century. So hold tight gentlemen. So, my name's Amani. I'm a poet. God, you've got me for 10 minutes. 10 minutes and a poet, I think sometimes that turns people to dread. Luckily for you, I've got lots of chat as well. So we're going to chat a little bit because I loved hearing all of these really incredible women and their stories on the panel. And what I also like to do is, I think a lot of the time you open a book of poems and you don't get to find out too much about the author because they're either dead or you really like Roland Barthes, or that's like a literary reference. That was so assholey of me. My God, calm down, Amani. But like some people think, nah, I shouldn't know what the author says about their work. It just matters what's on the page. But I think the really nice thing about spoken word is that you get to know what happened. And heck, if I die and it's still on YouTube, as I think a lot of things are gonna end up being, then it's a shame that they're gonna miss out on all the chat. So I've got 2 poems for you tonight. And thinking really hard about what to perform. And I think what we've heard a lot of tonight is about trauma, which I think is really understandable, being a brown girl, being a Muslim girl, being a queer girl, in this wonderful country. The thing is, I've got a bit of an odd upbringing. You can probably hear it in my accent that I grew up in the States. And where I grew up, I was certainly not the minority. Actually, it was like 60% Asian. White people were the minority. They kind of got made fun of. And when I came here, I went to the University of Exeter, which if you don't know, is stereotyped for having lots of rich white kids who go there, and their parents own manors, and they like do lunches and wear Jack Wills and all this stuff. And like when I went, I found it such a bizarre experience to be in the minority. Like I just truly didn't understand what was going on half the time. I thought it was a joke. And the longer I was there, the more I was like, oh, this is real. You know, there are people genuinely in my classes being like, why do we have to talk about whiteness? There's no white people in here. And I was like, is my name Anna Smith or something? And it was just a very strange time. And as I was there, I suppose I got radicalized in a kind of way, which is a dangerous thing if you're a Muslim woman, I suppose, or at least if you are listening to that and thinking, oh my God, she's gonna blow shit up. Yes, I will. I absolutely will, just not in the way you're thinking I will. And I was thinking about, particularly as a Muslim woman who does it my way, who's got like a GNT on the table, who's had premarital sex, who doesn't wear a hijab. I think a lot of people, they just don't get it. And like, I think with other people, like for example with Christians, you'll never be like, oh, why don't you fast all 40 days of Lent? You'll be like, oh no, you gave up Facebook, good for you. And there's just so much questioning about us as Muslims and who we are, both from our own communities who always say we're not enough in certain ways, and also from British communities, and I mean white British communities, and I mean non-Muslim British communities, who just look at us and go, oh God, you're a monster. And so Just Karen wrote that monologue about Medusa, and we were laughing because I was telling her that in my pretentious studies, we read this pretentious essay by a pretentious French critical theorist called Hélène Cixous, who's not really pretentious. She wrote a really awesome essay, and she wrote this essay called The Laugh of the Medusa. And literally, to what Just Karen was saying, it's about how women become monstrous when they voice their own anything. Literally, when you open your mouths, when the men turn to stone because you're talking about your period, like live and happening, people, you know, in this room. And I'm so sick of being lost in this wash of people's opinions about Muslim women and who we're meant to be. And because that's what angsty poets do, you write poetry about these things. So this poem is called Laugh of the Medusa. Watch your bag. Watch your friend. Watch that sister at the end of the tube carriage rocking back and forth in the felt seat with a Thusby threaded between her fingers. Nobody notices her Nike sneakers. Leave a 3-person radius around the hijabi with a backpack standing well back from the platform edge in case Tommy comes by raking a baseball bat over the white tiles. I spy with my little eye her iPhone screen. She's bopping to Florence in the Machine. But I guess you don't notice our assimilation. Our interpretation of culture is how we crush the mesh of them between our fingers like border fences, and how we stitch hybrid flags from the ripped seams of our partitioned lands, and how we finesse the spices these colonizers could steal but never seem to learn how to use to season. We integrate the taste of home into your bland dishes, and then stand washing up over the kitchen sink, wistfully wishing for some nostalgic rewind of the Diaspora tinker tape to a time when Allahu Akbar still meant God is great and didn't turn you into a walking pipe bomb. And when the hairs poking out your hijab didn't become strike-copper wires. When men didn't magnify their desire over sweaty, crepuscular computer screens. Yeah, baby, come for me, boy, don't come for me. Somehow, even when men lowered their gazes, they managed to make our bodies obscene. Our hips are vilified, and our lettered tights and split thighs become excuses for them to hide in. As if my sinning justifies yours. Still, it seems no matter who's doing the looking, our wombs, our hunting grounds turn graveyards. We're crucified in our own weaponized bodies, and I've had enough. Women have always written their histories in white ink, so don't think that you can read me now. Look at me now. I'll turn you to stone. Damned by the West if I cover up, damned by God if I don't. I'll succumb and play monster for you. Succubus to your fallible protagonist, Calypso to your Odysseus. My laugh is the Medusa, so you better cover your ears. My serrated giggle splintering your hubris. I'm the burning stake in the Cyclops' eye. I'm Artemis transforming Actaeon into a stag. I am the single iris shared between 3 hags, still scrying the future with perfect clarity. And baby, I predict hellfire because Karma, she's a bitch. 3 bitches. 4 bitches, 5 bitches, a whole matriarchal line of bitches walking shackle-free, cackling their bitch cackles hysterically because they can foresee a line of queens that never would have been if not for the misery you inflicted. If you hadn't evicted us from our bodies, our homes, we are the living ghosts coming to collect alimony 50 years too late. Coming to collect the education stolen from child brides at 15. Coming to collect their half-finished degrees. Coming to collect those buried baby girls. Blessed be that unborn chorus of voices who wouldn't have been allowed to speak, let alone to scream. Blessed be those invisible women who have somehow still flourished like weeds. We have overgrown Eden. Led a new garden. Birthed our own freedom. Poem on that. Yeah. Thank you. I don't know, like, you try to do all this clever self-censorship as an artist, you're like, okay, if I stand a certain way, if I step back from my mic, they'll know I'm finished. Hopefully I will have written it well enough that they know. No, you still have to be like, and that was my first poem. Thanks so much for listening. That was my first poem. Thanks so much for listening. So this second and last poem, again, thinking about how we so often talk about our trauma. I put out a film this year, which is really exciting, and it's called Queer Parivar, which means queer family. And I did this with Saira Jamieson, who is the brainchild behind the project. They're an incredible person, and what they really focus on in this film is trying to tell a positive queer South Asian love story. Because so often we die in the films or get disowned, or just so many awful things happen to us, and they had the good sense to be like, do you know what, I'm so sick of this. I would really like us to take our own narrative into our hands and talk about good things. And I heard a lot on the panel today about how tough brown families can be. And I think I've had the privilege of being in a family that's really accepting. And I wonder if it was because it was so non-normative. My grandma got married off when she was 15, which is not non-normative. She got into an arranged marriage. But she found out that her husband cheated on her, and instead of just sticking with him, she kicked him out the house, raised 3 daughters by herself, went down to the local watch factory, got a job, went down to the local college, learned English, put up some air hostesses from Heathrow, which she lives nearby, and just kind of got on with it. And so as a result, her story and the story that's been passed down my family is, doesn't really matter what you're wearing, doesn't really matter who you are. I just want to put food on your table, a roof over your head, and I want you to be a good person. And that's yeah, go Nanny John, for having some sense. And she really wanted an education, and like my family comes into my poetry a lot, and you know, my mom's an incredible woman. I think she's been really calm about most things. And like I've just never even felt that faith was a part of my identity that I couldn't touch or access because of other elements of me. And she's been so chill. The first time she found out I had sex, like her first comment was, yeah, God, I need to sit down. But also, her first question was, were you safe? Like, did you use a condom? And like, do we need to talk about birth control and getting you those kinds of things? So like, that's the kind of family I grew up in. And it's like, it's the same when I came out and I told them I was queer. I mean, at first my mom thought I was joking, right? Like, and I thought parents were supposed to have that sixth sense where they just know, not my mom. It's always been super chill. And even when like I came out to a family member who I thought was going to be quite restrictive and not be okay with that, she gave me a really real answer, which I appreciated a lot. And it was, you know what, I may not, you know, approve or like that, but if I told you that and told you you had to come home to me with a man, you'd do what you wanted to do anyway, and you would have to lie to me. And I never want you to lie to me. So, you know, do what you will, be who you are, and I don't see you any differently. Just don't tell anyone else I'm okay with it, which is why I haven't named them. But, because, you know, what will people say? But I think I appreciated that, because I think so often we need to have some kind of Cinderella story where everything is magically okay. And actually, our cultures are so much more complicated and at this level of nuance to who we are and what we do. And I think it's fine that I don't have a white person Cinderella coming out story. I wouldn't want one. That's not who I am, and that's not my culture. So as long as I'm, you know, my parents and my family are good with me, can accept me, and like even if they don't fully understand it, sometimes I think that's braver than anything else. And I think I'm really proud of them for that. And I'm proud for where I come from and that the people that I come from are them. Woo! Yeah! Yeah! Come on, family! Woo! Anyway, you're here for poetry, not chat, or maybe both. But this next poem and last poem I'm going to do is called Chai Tea, which pisses me off, and I think if you know, right? Recently, and for the very first time, I went to India. Sup, white man? Bye. So I went to India for the first time. And again, pretentious theorist, story of my life. But there's this incredible theorist called Paul Gilroy. And he talked about this in the context of the Black trans-American slave trade. But he talked a lot about those enslaved people who were taken over to America, and then the generations of them that were born, and then about emancipation, and about the ways in which they had to understand their culture and understand themselves. And Gilroy argued that there were basically 2 camps that people kind of put themselves in. Either looking back to their roots, R-O-O-T-S, and talking about where they came from, trying to like go back, return to a place which was now impossible because so much time had passed, they had changed as people, and it just wasn't possible to go back to the way things were before. He also talked about people who chose to pursue their roots, R-O-U-T-E-S, and about how they had to embrace hybridity and, acclimatize themselves to a new land. Again, fully recognizing that that was beyond their choice, but that it was a choice that they now had to make. And I think for a long time, because we are people and we kind of exist in binary systems, I thought you had to pick one or the other, right? And I was always like, you know what, fuck my heritage, doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna care about being here and now, what I'm gonna do here, my accent is this, I don't know Urdu like you, my parents never fucking taught me, and now they still make fun of me when I try and speak anything. It's like, bro, this is a monster of your own making. But yeah, you did this! You speak 5 languages, and I speak Spanish. What is wrong with you? And, but so, back to Gilroy, I was always thinking, well, I just have to pursue one. Then I took this trip through poetry, which was a blessing, through the British Council, thank you. And I got to go to Delhi, and I got to work with an Indian poet, and I got to perform this poem, which is about being able to take absolutely everything and just own all of it with no fucks given, no explanations given to anyone, just being able simply to encompass absolutely everything, which is what I feel. And I feel that's a product of what I am and kind of who I am. And I think we'll end on that note. I was told to write my own truths. Somehow, being brown is always one of them. But I don't want to tell you about being a brown girl. I don't speak for brown girls. Because like we assume white individuality, how we separate those shades of pearl, alabaster, cream, there are different shades of chai, coffee, teak. When I speak for me. And let me tell you, I get culture shock every time I look in the mirror. I'm not an ABCD or even a BBCD. I'm more of a confused as hell, British born, American raised, confused as hell Desi who's got some other kind of ancestry within me but can never be sure what it is because my grandma lost our copy of the family tree. Fuck me. I just can't help it. When God made me, they took the tea bag out too early. Omnipotent deity didn't listen to their Auntie G when they made that fateful morning cup of chai. Tried to find a way to avoid wastage and instead basted my skin with it. Now I'm painted this semi-toasted tint that I can't quite name. Holding up a Pantone color chart, praying my shades on there somewhere. And so birthed into this world with my stained skin, I'm asked the inevitable, boring question. Where do you really come from? As if I know. Well, all my brown friends call India the motherland. I think I must be adopted. How can it be my motherland if it didn't birth me, if I've only once seen it firsthand? Shout out to Salman Rushdie for teaching me that my homeland's imaginary, because it really ain't my homeland. Ain't even my mother's homeland, ain't even my mother's mother's homeland, not really. Nani Jan was taken from India at 15 and arranged into marriage with a full-grown man. Kenya, the next homeland for my mother, and then Hounslow, Brownsville of London, and an attached house with pink walls where I was born and brought to America. Homeland number 3. But now I've got this accent, these friendships, this family that spans oceans, ancestry that circles the whole globe. I'm proof that it's all home, that this world is borderless. And there's nobody who can tell me what I am, because there's nobody who can tell me what I'm not. I span hot desert winds and Hyderabadi biryani, calligraphic inscriptions and swimming competitions, scones with clotted cream and jam and advanced placement exams, shalwar kameez that love my curved hips and Abercrombie jeans that just won't sit over them, masala dosas, samosas, mimosas, Arabic lessons, Saturday detentions, text messages, varsity jackets, empty Cadbury packets. I'm one international multicultural package wrapped up in brown paper, tied up with white string. My song is strewn all over this earth. So you better believe that the next time somebody asks me where I'm really from, I'll just tell them I come from home. Thank you very much. I believe I now have the absolute pleasure of introducing Livia. Is that right? Absolutely. Please welcome to the stage Livia, everyone.
So my name is Olivia Koujo Allure. You have heard me speak on the panel. It was a real big honor to share space and art with all these amazing women and everybody who's in the room today. And thank you for the amazing poetry and the amazing monologue. I feel really honored to be part of this. And I mentioned earlier that I've written a poetry collection. It's coming out on the 15th of September. I do a little plug here. It's coming out on the 15th September by Polari Press, and you can already pre-order it. So go on my Instagram and buy it. Support a poet of color. And I also said that I don't have a live mother anymore. And this is one, so my poetry, I write a lot of social justice poetry. I write around racism a lot. And I also write about Black queer love and where am I going next. But the book is dedicated to my late adoptive mother, who was the main figure in shaping who I am today. I lost her when I was 17, and I love her very much. She's my guiding angel, and I think I only have one poem in me today, and this will be the first poem of the book, dedicated to my mother, and it starts in German. I'm very sorry. Go learn some German. Starting today. The beginning of all times. Fat Freddy's Katze war dein Lieblingscomic. Benny Hill, The Beatles, The Stones, der Rock'n'Roll-Verein, Haarteile, Jade, Ohrringe, alles in grün. Immer wieder der absolut allerletzte Versuch. Du hast den Sarkasmus wirklich nicht verstanden, aber immer so getan. Kettenrauchender Workaholic, die klassische Übermutter mit dem lockeren Portemonnaie. Wünsche gehen nur in Erfüllung, wenn man sie bezahlt, Geld oder Religion, aber trotzdem wird in Weiß geheiratet. Du konntest dich so derartig unter den Tisch trinken und trotzdem am nächsten Morgen Leben retten. Engel in Weiß, radikal und trotzdem total normal. Überflieger, underrated und wenn ich mich richtig erinnere, absolutely adorable. Oh mother, how I miss you. When I walk down the lane to my home for the last time, the wind and green leaves floating ducks on the lake, where I grew up time was always standing still. I've never seen the big city from afar. Bike rides in the morning, a sweet pastry for my lunch, wooden chairs and brick walls of school times, but nothing could prevent me from getting hurt so deeply. Oh mother, how I miss you. A white Beetle car so knackered from the 70s. A black and white cat in my crib. A grandmother who used to be a Nazi hugging me deeply, suffocating me with their love. Love. Growing up wasn't easy. When life ended early, society gaslit me out. I only held onto my optimism on the dance floor, full of synthetic love. Love. Oh mother, how? I miss you. I want to see the sun shining wildly through the leaves. Have you ever had a forest in your backyard mit Blättern so grün und der Erde so braun, where your heart could sink into a muddy footstep, plucking worms, chasing beetles, feeding your imagination? I kneeled on the floor to steal milk out of my cat's feeding tray. I flew to the moon on a black table. I kissed a girl and punched a boy in primary school. I shaved my head and danced, crying for a lost future in academia. I rebelled for as long until rebellion became my identity. Welcoming womanhood, not knowing what to do with it. There is still no label that fits. Oh mother, how I miss you. You would have been so proud. I am everything you could have ever imagined, just not in a conventional way. I saw you die, lying on the table, open wounds, that would never heal. There and then I left you to let you die alone. I know what I have done. Life has been hard but good. You are my angel, my guiding light. Oh mother, I miss you. Walking down memory lane, remembering the trees, the sunlight sparkles once more, and I wish I would be a child just for one more day. Come home from kindergarten, ripped open bleeding knees, sitting on the toilet seat while you clean my wounds. Feel the sting of the alcohol wipes, the hugs and the cries for all our lost times. Oh mother, how I miss you. But I am happy you are gone, setting me free to be my higher self. I have brothers and sisters now. I fled my white saviors. You have taught me to be strong, and I have always been much stronger. So when the sun is shining through the leaves, dripping golden memories sparkling on my skin, I remember you and my purpose always. Because I am so very proud of where I'm from. Oh mother, that's how I miss you. Thank you so much. I wanted to share it because I think there are a lot of people in the room who don't have ties to their family, and I think grieving the loss of family, even if we've chosen to go that route, it's like a lifelong pain that we have to overcome every morning when we stand up and get into our lives. So thank you for letting me share.